encourage your participation, active participation, and feel free to ask when we open up for a question and answer session. I would like to introduce Zubair, who will be actually going through this webinar and walking you through this L7 defense product. So, Zubair, handing over to you.
Thank you so much, Nehal. First of all, just mic check. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. So, hi everyone. Welcome to our webinar, and hopefully, we'll be able to have a fruitful and meaningful conversation. So, the topic today would be covering on a primary fundamental course, which is basically running through most of the enterprises that we have seen. So we would be talking about API security, how critical it is, and what is the solution that we have brought into the market to mitigate any specific threats that are related to the API security space. So with this, we will start the session with our solution, that is L7 Defense for API security. This is a solution which actually has been awarded by Frost and Sullivan as a product leader. So moving ahead, some housekeeping rules. So, by the way, just to start, these are some key figures. So, most of you might be aware of it, or these are some things that helps us to get started and understand how critical API security is. Let's talk about some of the key organizations. So, for example, Salesforce. Salesforce has more than 50% of its revenue being driven through APIs itself. Then talking about Expedia, it's more than 90% of their revenue, and eBay, it's like 60%. So, but 22,000 was the API mark that we have seen in June 2019, and post-COVID era, we have seen tremendous growth in this space. So just a brief introduction. I am Zubair. I am part of the pre-sales team within Securite. So I handle the enterprise sales requirements, both from the traditional as well as the upcoming new products, that is L7 Defense in this scenario. So, starting the overall discussion, a key introduction about how Securite is into the market and what do we actually do. So, Securite is a trusted partner which helps in securing transformation journey for most of the enterprises. So, we have an experience of more than 25 years of collaboratively working with multiple organizations, governments in the fields of enabling them and empowering their overall cybersecurity posture. Our company was founded way back in 1995 when cybersecurity was just taking a head start. It was just the firewall and the endpoint mobility space. So we have reached so far, we have continuously developed our research and development. We have included all these aspects onto our next generation product line. And this is where we have actually concluded upon, wherein we have a solution that meets the current sophisticated requirements. We also are the only cybersecurity company which is listed on a public platform, that is the Stock Exchange of India. So we have two stock exchanges. One is the BSE and NSE. We are listed on both the stock exchange with a market capital of more than INR 100,000 CR. So Quick Heal has its own security lab. We have multiple threat and R&D development centers wherein we help in real-time threat detection as well as threat intelligence. Our customer base covers more than 35,000 enterprise customers, which are into all these spaces of like retail, high tech, BFSI, manufacturing, automotive, you name the space, and Securite is already present in it. These are some of the certifications and patents that backs our claim about how our solution is the next generation pioneer platform. We have been awarded by AV Test, by ICSA Labs. ISO has certified us with all the product limited certifications, and also we have registered multiple patents on our sophisticated technologies. These are some of the patents which are actually registered to us. You can actually see on the right hand side all the patents that we have recently enlisted. These are the very common and very advanced features that we have incorporated into our products. So at the back end, when we are talking about core products, we have this GoDeep.ai, which is basically a predictive malware hunting engine that builds together on top of the traditional security approach. It's an artificial intelligence engine, which is basically powering both the signature less as well as signature based detections. So it has multiple features combined together, which performs an overall threat prevention landscape. Now, getting into the topic, so our world is continuously changing. One third of the total top 10 incumbents in each industry will be displaced by the digital disruption in the next 5 years. This is the magnitude of change that we are talking about. We keep hearing in the news day in and day out that there are some changes, some of the other factors come into play. So the market rulers have already been displaced. We see new and emerging trends coming into the market, and these are widely adapted by the society. And we have seen paradigms getting out. We have seen massive changes happening on a global scale. So an impact of digital disruption is not just limited onto one particular industry. We have this digital disruption which is taking place in all the particular segments. Let it be media, entertainment, let it be technology, telecom, retail, or financial segments. With every new technology, with every new, I'll say, um, i- innovation that is happening, we are seeing a massive evolution in the overall structure of the vertical or the industry in which we are working on. So, for example, media and entertainment, it has recently grown up to a very large scale in the last 10 years. So, Netflix, it was not present. How significant was Netflix? And now, given the current scenario, it is taking the world over by storm. Then on the same field, technology, we are talking about AI, ML, whatnot, IoT devices continuously on the rise. So massive changes are going on. Telecom, we are already talking about 5G technologies. Now going forward, 6G is already in the pipeline for most of the countries. This is the landscape that we are living in. With retail, stores coming up with automotive selection engine and financial segments with multiple open banking platforms and stock broking engines that work on a real-time basis. So this is somewhere what we are experiencing right now. This is the life of digital disruption. So at the back end, what is supporting all these factors? So for example, take a case that you have within your smartphone multiple apps. So you have an app which you can utilize for booking a taxi, an app that you utilize for, booking a food order online, an app to basically connect with your near ones, an app basically to have your self facilitated through medical experiences, a shopping application. There can be multiple things, and we are seeing tremendous change in the era. People are not just restricted onto one platform. So we are utilizing more and more applications. We are going to more and more different products. We are exponentially increasing our horizon. The digital dependency of a person at this point in time is very huge. A typical user at this point spends most of the hours of his lifetime glued to a particular smartphone. And then in the smartphone, you will see multiple applications who are continuously sharing the information in real time at the backend. So how are all these applications powered? How is the engine actually working? So to share that level of information, to collect that level of metadata and have that connectivity enabled at all points in time, that is something which is primarily driven through APIs. And this is the significance of APIs, and this is how it is transforming our lives. Because we, at this point in time, are just not talking about sitting glued on a particular laptop and working on certain web pages. So we do have office applications as well. We are utilizing those applications day in and day out. And this is something which is a part of our schedule. And that is how we can determine how critical these APIs actually are. So with most of the features, we are actually partnering with the governance to in India itself and with multiple other countries, wherein we are changing the overall face of the governance by utilizing understanding what kind of a framework they are actually applying at the back end. So moving ahead, what is the role of an API? How critical it is? So, if we are talking about the significance, it is very important to understand the role of a particular API. So, some key figures. Digital transformations are actually driving the business to new heights. We are talking about digital platforms continuously being driven, applications continuously changing, having that dynamic engine in place wherein multiple changes are brought forward within seconds or within milliseconds also. Automated information currently on the rise, multiple things connected to each other. So all of this are actually widely connected through APIs itself. And as it's written on this slide, APIs are integral to providing seamless connections between digital assets. When we are talking about all this connectivity, APIs are actually the backbone which is empowering all these connections. Some key figures are mentioned here about IoT, how we have seen tremendous growth in actually the same. I'm sorry, is there a question? Can everybody go on mute, please? Okay. So
Zubair, I can't hear you. You've gone on mute.
am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we were talking about APIs. So APIs also are, very critical and why we require this level of API security. So some key figures which have been denoted by industry veterans like Gartner. So what Gartner has stated is that by 2022, that is the upcoming year, API abuses will move on from an infrequent to the most frequent attack vector. So this will be the primary tool for any hacker, for any malicious community to actually get inside the overall network. And most of the data breaches in this scenario will be taken by considering the API vulnerabilities in this case. And Akamai, which is a major CDN provider, predicts that 83% of all web traffic currently is driven through APIs. And post-COVID scenario, up by this quarter end, or I'll say by this half year end, we will see most of the traffic, that is more than 90% of the traffic, will actually have migrated onto the API platform. So API calls will be the primary mode of communication between the applications in this case, and the growth is actually tremendous. If we see the development of API, right from the SOAP-based APIs to RESTful APIs to how it actually has grown, you will see a trajectory which is, very much linear and it is going upwards and upwards. And then Gartner estimates by 2021, that is this year end, exposed APIs will have a larger attack surface area than UIs for 90% of web-enabled applications. So, what is our vision? What do we actually want to do? We, as a solution provider, want to lead the security of the API economy. We understand about how it's going into the market, how we're, seeing an era wherein digital transformation is actually driving everything. And then multiple other aspects have also concurred and have also been a part of our daily experiences. For example, IoTs and open banking systems. We are interacting with them day in and day out. This is a primary resource. These are some key capabilities which are required by each and every organization. And it's not just the organization, even the end users who are working for such kind of enterprises would want certain, key functionalities from their organization in this case. And it will be a key ask for any such user who is working for such kind of an organizations. So driving that level of economy, understanding the requirement that is being posed by it, and then mitigating any such threat that is posed onto this particular segment is the overall vision of a solution. So now when we go to the API security market and we try to understand from the people that what is an API security, you talk to different type of people, you'll get 10 different answers from them. So for example, if I'm going to a particular application developer and I ask him, what is an API security for you? So the primary, answer that we will get in this case is that he would be more aligned towards, how it helps him to integrate multiple microservices or multiple distributed applications towards each other and provide a seamless access. So that would be his approach onto the API security. Now, when I ask a business user what is API for him, so API for him would be a different approach because for him, APIs will be something that is bridging his business to the external users for enabling his applications to meet the target customers. So as many APIs are open to him, that much is the kind of relevance that he wants his business to be exposed to. Then when you go on to the end user, what does he want from an API? He wants seamless access. He wants to access everything at one particular application without having the pain to shift, without having a pain to actually go through and do multiple changes. If he's getting the seamless access, he is actually confined and he will be a potential, lifetime customer in this case. So we were talking about API usage growth. We have seen a linear growth into the API segment, and that is something which will be, highlighted in the statistics that are showing here. So as we already discussed, 83% of all web traffic in 2019 was, driven through API calls. And in the current scenario, we are looking at somewhere around 90% by the end of this year, and 65% is the percentage of practitioners that actually don't have secure API access at this point in time. So they do have controls, they do have the framework design wherein APIs are actually integrated with their backend applications. But when you talk about secure access to those particular APIs, that how vulnerable they are, so there will be no answer to that. Then, when you ask organizations that what is the typical APIs that you interact with day in and day out? So at an approximate value, we were able to find many small and medium businesses have like approximately 363 APIs. Now, the range keeps on going up as the organization size and as the complexity of the application increases. Now, when we are working with microservices, now when have a platform like Kubernetes, we are working with multi-cloud environment. So we see, APIs that are running in thousands and thousands and that are continuously connected, sharing information, and within one particular API having one particular vulnerability can lead to a failure of all this framework. That is how critical these APIs are. And that is what we saw with multiple breaches in the overall economies. For example, in United States, we saw a major breach in their postal service, and the postal service is like the financial backbone. So they overlooked an API weakness, and the attacker in this case was able to go inside, and then steal the credentials for more than 60 million users. This similar case happened with the IT giant Facebook, and we all understand how Facebook is very much, dedicated towards its cybersecurity posture. But still, there was a vulnerability in their API, which resulted into a chain of events. These chain of events includes privilege escalation, lateral movement, multiple things happen. And then going from all these processes, the end attacker at this case was able to get inside and steal the credentials for more than 37 million customer data. We have seen multiple other use cases also. For example, OkCupid and Meetup had this similar kind of a breach, wherein data of the users was actually exposed over the web. And this case, there were massive divorces that were filed out in the European and US region. And given on the same line, we saw in the night in the news, it was actually highlighted for a very long time that what happened with Uber. So with Uber, what happened was their partner as well as the user data was compromised by the attacker in this case. So the attacker was able to get inside their internal applications by actually going through a vulnerability which was present in their public API. So he went inside, he stole those data, and then he encrypted that data on top of it while he was leaving. So when he encrypted that data, the same person actually asked for a ransom to the CISO. Now, in this case, the CISO was actually willing to pay the same, but then this particular situation got the attention of regulatory authorities, and the CISO was actually put behind bars. So this is how complicated cybersecurity actually is. And the nature of cybersecurity is such that we need to be aware. We need to evolve ourselves as we see the changes that are going into the market. Otherwise, it will always lead to a particular failure. This is the kind of environment that we're actually living in. So, as I said, APIs are like the building blocks of everything. They are present at every stage within an organization when I'm talking about multiple points of intersections. So for the first example, so we do have multiple public or open based APIs. These APIs are basically those types which are actually utilized by the end users. So end users like us who are actually utilizing the interfaces, the applications within our cell phones, within our smartphones or our laptops, desktops. So these types of APIs help these kind of people to actually connect with the backend application and share real-time information. And this sharing of real-time information is very much dynamic in nature because we understand that as per our request, so our request can continuously change. And the same needs to correspond with the kind of response that we want from the application. And it is resonated through APIs itself. And the same, we also understand that businesses are actually not running in silos anymore. We are talking about dependency on multiple organizations. We are talking about sharing of information in real time so that we are enabling our businesses. So, multiple teams like IT outsourcing, like supply logistics, like financial planning. So there can be multiple aspects to it. Multiple teams having multiple requirements of different sets of data. Now, sharing the right amount of data with the right stakeholder and allowing that seamless access is something which is enabled through partner-based APIs in most of the scenarios. Then there are multiple other types of APIs, which is termed as internal APIs. These APIs are like the building blocks of what exactly is going inside the application framework. So when we are talking about application deployments, these can be distributed across multiple geographies. So we are living in an era wherein applications are not residing on a particular server anymore. We're talking about microservices. We are talking about multi-cloud environments. We are talking about segmentation, which happens at every layer. So having that level of segmentation, having that level of segregation, wherein everything is distributed, but still we want to give that seamless access to the end user. So that is something where API actually comes into play because what it does, it connects all these, API, all these application portions with each other and forms a horizontal approach wherein it continuously adapts, it continuously overcomes with any challenges that it's facing. And when we require real-time data, it will gather the same from all the sources that it is connected to and then pass the relevant information. So talking about market opportunities, So, according to Gartner, by 90% of the web enabled applications will have more attack surface area in the form of exposed APIs rather than user interfaces by 2021. And this is something that we are actually living in at this point in time. So, by 2022, that is the upcoming year, API abuses will be the most frequent attack vectors. And to put a figure to it, $600 billion is the yearly global cost of API security breaches. And this is as good as the next year, that is 2022. So we are actually living in this era wherein market opportunities are huge. We are seeing, dependency of customers within this particular solution that can meet the requirement. This is a gap that needs to be filled, and we actually are providing a solution that is a pioneered product which will bridge that particular gap and help the customers so that they can, grow. They can basically enable their applications to move frequently into the market. Now, we also understand that there are multiple traditional technologies that have been taking care of application security up till this point. There have been traditional players that are, talking about having that sophisticated layer of application security currently. So web-enabled web application firewalls. These are the kind of firewalls that actually helps the current application scenario from any cybersecurity related attacks. So, what is a WAF? It is very important to understand the same to actually highlight that what happens in case a WAF fails and what are the limitations of this particular solution. And to understand the same, when we're talking about WAF is, as the name predicts, it's a web application firewall, an application aware firewall. So the same manner a firewall works, the same is replicated onto a web application firewall. It's just that it is more aware about what is going inside the application layer in this case. So in the same way as we design stringent rules and policies on a firewall, we have to do the same when we are actually protecting our application and having the WAF deployments. So we create multiple strings which are written down on the format of a particular rule, or multiple policies are actually created on top of it, which either allows the traffic to come inside or blocks the traffic at one particular level. So what happens in this scenario is that we have to keep on changing any particular policy as we see the change coming in from outside or whatever is going from inside to outside. So with every change, we need human intervention. And when we are talking about human intervention, a particular code, a particular analyst will actually have to spend hours and hours of his time to write down codes for any change that is being predicted, which is very much critical to the business. Now, to actually understand how important this is and what we are actually facing, we need to see what kind of an environment that we are living in. We were talking about APIs. So as I said, APIs are very dynamic in nature. The request completely changes over time. We are seeing request changing. We are seeing the overall objects that are being generated by the APIs changing within seconds. So when we see such type of a change which is brought into the place and the same is actually replicated on a web application firewall, so what happens? A web application firewall by default will not be able to detect the same. So we'll be having two choices in this case. Either we block any such traffic with change into its nature to come inside my application, or we allow the traffic. If we are actually blocking the traffic, we are impacting the business availability of the application. And availability is a key pillar in cybersecurity. And it is the primary importance of any business that is trying to run its operations. Now, the second option that business has is opening up to the path so that any change will actually be able to go through. When we are letting those changes go through, if there is any vulnerability or any malicious code which is embedded on top of it, that code can actually be executed on top of that application. So The same thing actually happens a lot of times. And that is why we have seen so many bypasses happening. So as you see, 65% of the responders actually agree with what I was actually saying. And when we are doing these kind of changes, even if my analyst is so compatible, so if he, manages and to write down the policy within minutes or hours, so then also we'll see extremely high false positive rate for the same. So as you can see, more than 30% of WAF labeling is actually false positive in nature. Now, we also have solutions into the market that are talking about API management. These solutions are termed as API gateways. Now, how a solution is actually different from the same, we need to understand that what is the role of these particular solutions. So, a API gateway is, as I said, a API management platform. The main role of API gateway is to provide access control. So, access control through role-based access control policies is defined on top of a list created wherein we define all the APIs that are trying to connect to the application. So we list down all those APIs and then we segregate on the basis of the roles assigned, and then we allocate on which particular domain or subdomain these APIs are required to connect. So that is the only thing which an API gateway does. If there is any vulnerability in a particular API, if there is any malicious content hidden inside an API, an API gateway will not be able to detect the same. And also in a scenario wherein we are talking about multiple undocumented APIs trying to make a connection to the backend applications, an API gateway will not be able to sniff the same. So all these, connections actually have a bypass, which should be directly going on to the backend applications. Or in a particular scenario, they won't be able to pass through and impacting the overall business availability. This is where L7 defense comes into play. And what we have done is we have actually created a pioneer product which helps in mitigating all these challenges and thereby creating a solution which works on primary pillars of the cybersecurity like availability, confidentiality, and integrity. So keeping all these factors in mind and having a solution that works continuously and keeps on evolving as we see the evolving space in the overall threat landscape, that is something which is replicated onto L7 Defense solution. The solution is actually patented as immune. So immune is based as on an innate immune theory, which replicates how a human biological model actually works. So, in the similar way, a human body fights with infections, it fights with viruses, bacteria entering our body on a very cellular level. We are talking about white blood cells, red blood cells coming into play, helping our overall systems to actually thrive. So, in the same way, what we have done is we have replicated the same process, we have replicated the same ideology onto our platform wherein what we do is we work at a very granular level. We understand the nature, we understand the criticality, we understand the profiling at each and every process. So when we are talking about granularity, we operate at every web page and every API. So any web page that is trying to establish a connection, any API that is establishing a call will have a separate profile created on its own, of its own actually. So all these profiles will be documented, they will be created, they'll have a separate ID allocated on them, wherein there will be a particular baseline which will define that what is the behavior of this particular API and what is the business logic behind any such call that is trying to make an interaction. So whenever on the API in this case is trying to make a connection, we'll correlate the business logic and then we'll see if there is something that can actually be, malicious in nature or not. So what we do is we run both the negative as well as positive machine learning algorithms to understand the same, to categorize these APIs and then create a rotating baseline on top of it. This rotating baseline is very much dynamic in nature. And as we see the changes on the APIs on the very argument level, the same is replicated onto the profile of that particular API. And this continuously changing behavior actually brings us with a platform that is ever evolving. Now, the uniqueness of this solution is that the solution is very much autonomous in nature. And when we see any malicious activity coming inside, so the solution deploys custom signatures in near real time. I'm talking about microseconds here. So having that custom signature deployed, so we automatically block any such activity to come inside. And when we are working at a granular level, we actually understand each and every argument that is getting established. So with this, there is no human intervention whatsoever required. So the effort and the time taken to remediate actually reduces up to a very large extent. We are not talking about hours, we are not talking about days anymore. So it is happening in near real time. And the uniqueness, another uniqueness that I want to highlight of the solution is the extremely low level of false positive rates. We looked at WAF, the false positive rates for like more than 30% in most of the scenarios. With our solution, the false positive rates are actually at 0.005%. This is the kind of margin of error that we are actually working on. And the kind of deployment that we have, the solution is very elastic. It's a software-based image, which can be readily deployed onto any public cloud environment. So we do have the machine images already, in place for AWS, Azure, and GCP. And then, we can easily deploy the same onto on-premises setup for virtual machine as a virtual image. Or if there is a microservices environment, this can be deployed as a Docker image as well. Now, L7 Defense actually helps in providing 3D value to the customer. So the 3D values that we're talking about here is on the discovery, detection, and the defend portion. Discovery actually helps in providing the 360 visibility of the threat vectors that particular application is actually exposed to. It will provide the customer with all the visibility of all APIs as well as web pages that are trying to connect. So the overall threat exposure, the overall level of exposure of a particular application will be highlighted on a single pane of a glass, wherein you will be able to see that what all are the type of traffic patterns, what all are the type of APIs, what are the type of mobile-based traffic or web-based traffic that are actually trying to establish a connection with us. So all of this will be presented in a single pane of glass, wherein you will be able to see that what exactly is coming inside my network. Let it be a documented API, let it be a change in those documented APIs, or let it be undocumented APIs. All these factors will actually come into play and everything will be recorded and presented at a near real time. Then the solution also has this detection portion wherein what we are doing is we are applying business logic on top of our learning algorithms. So we can take an example to actually highlight the same. So for example, a particular API is trying to make a call and drive some meaningful information out of a financial process within an application. So the same behavior is actually replicated onto the profile of this particular API. And when we see, so what is the use case behind this particular API coming inside my financial process, we actually resonate with all the requests as well as the response that we are getting from these applications. Now, if we have a different kind of a request or a different kind of a response from the application, the same will be highlighted as a suspicious activity because it is something that does not correlate with my business logic anymore. So the same will be highlighted and the same will actually be prevented also. Now, in the prevention that I was talking about, we work on the depend portion wherein we are automatically blocking, alerting, and reporting any such activity in near real time. So the system engine clicks whenever it sees any suspicious activity coming inside. And the same engine actually helps in protecting from any such activity. So Immune actually works on protection from both the application security as well as the API security risk. So most of you must be aware about OWASP having the list released for the top 10 application security and the API security risks. So we understand the kind of requirement that an organization has, the kind of threats that it is actually exposed to, and we are tightly integrated with the kind of list and with the kind of guidelines which are being provided by OWASP in this case. So here we are taking care of both the top 10 APIs as well as the top 10 application security. We are working on both these parameters as a single unified solution. And also we understand there are multiple automated threats that are present in the nature. We are talking about automated threats wherein bots are continuously being used, or these can be, impacting the level of availability through multiple, DDoS attacks. So all of that actually coming into play and having a solution that works with, keeping a view of protection from all these points is something that Immune is doing at this point in time. And we actually have certain examples to actually showcase the same. So, for example, we have this particular attack that we keep on seeing day in and day out. So these are various slow and distributed attacks that are happening in multiple environments. And whenever we read a particular news, so there is somewhere or the other these kind of attacks that are, very much defined in those particular articles. So, for example, if we're talking about sophisticated techniques like credential stuffing, card brute forces, or scrapping kind of an attack, wherein the dormant attack happens in such a way that it evades the kind of blocking parameters, it evades the kind of detection parameters, gets inside the network, resides on the application up to a specific point of time, then establishes a connection with its CNC center and exchanges the information that it was implanted to do. So what we are doing and how we are protecting from the same, because what we said is that we are working at very granular level. So whenever we see an argument that is getting run, whenever we see a script, whenever we see any such minute detail that is entering into our application landscape, we will correlate the same with the kind of profile behavior that it is generating. We will have advanced sandboxing running on top of it. There are multiple methods that we are actually utilizing to determine what kind of an attack vector it is. And the same is basically very much helpful when we are seeing embedded objects getting transferred, wherein you see an object is hiding within a particular object. We'll be able to actually see that if there is an object and it is not part of the overall argument, then we can block that particular object from actually entering inside the network. Thereby, slow and distributed attacks will not have any value anymore. So there can be multiple examples in this case. So there can be a traditional example of an SQL injection, wherein writing a particular script, we can hide a comment within a particular comment, do a privilege escalation, and a lateral movement maybe to get inside the database and steal the credentials. So such type of attack is very common these days. So it can be used for evading, it can be used for sniffing, it can be used for multiple purposes. So what we do is whenever a script is actually being run, so we see the script, how it is being run, what is the implication of the script, what is the business logic behind the scene. In case the script is not having the relevant response from the application, we will not allow the communication to go through. So any communication that is not getting the right amount of data outside, so both from the request as well as on the response parameters, the same will be, actually impacted. It will be actually blocked. So to provide an overall view of how the Immune dashboard actually looks like, so this is an overall view wherein we have a live activity tracker. There are multiple enhancements also that we have made on top of it. So I'll just run you through as we go on to each and every segment. So herein you will see at the top hand corner all the modules that are actually involved. So you will see the live activity tracker wherein you will see the normal request. So where the thread maps which are allocated on the thread request with the red color. And then, there can be multiple activities. These can be bot based activities also. So these kind of activities is highlighted into the magenta. Then on the right hand side, we see all the malicious IPs that are trying to interact with the applications. So what we have done is we have added certain more components on top of it. So you will be able to see all the IPs, the number of attempts that these IPs have made to come inside. Then what was the country of origin of this particular IP and the time of execution. All this will be provided into the malicious IP segment. Also, on the bottom half, you'll be able to see the notification area. In the notification area, you will get details of any such attack, that has established. So any such script. So for example, taken in XSS pattern kind of an attack. So there will be a particular script which is very much malicious in nature. So it will showcase you the details of this script running, that what was actually wrong with this particular script. It will highlight the same. So the same will be replicated. And when you click onto this particular ID, you will be able to go into detail, check the risk score, have those level of similar alerts wherein you can correlate that what was the kind of similar nature that you have seen in the, past attacks also. And then it will get you details of what was, the method that was utilized, what was the argument, what was the time, what was the destination, what was, every little detail from the domain to the time of execution, everything will be provided here. And also we'll be showcasing you the live score of the overall risk parameters of the applications within a single dashboard. These are some of the awards and recognition we have received from the market, which actually helps us in backing that how different the solution is and how it is very much welcomed into the market segment. So, for example, Frost and Sullivan has provided us with the Product Leadership Award, and Frost and Sullivan also has provided us with a unique anti-DDoS solution, because the same solution is working on API security as well as from the application-based DDoS solution. And market research firms like Markets and Markets, Plug and Play, CIO DDoS actually has helped us and showcased our capabilities and provided us with the relevant awards in defining that what kind of a solution actually Immune is. So we do have a very good presence in the global landscape, wherein we have customers from, United States, European Union, as well as, Israel and upcoming Indian market. So we do have customers from all over the area, wherein you will have references in most of the industries. For example, in government sector, you'll find someone or the other. In the financial sector, you will also find someone. So from all these aspects, in case if you need any help with the kind of vertical customer requirements, we'll be able to provide you with all those details. So with this, we are open to the question and answer session. So let's have a healthy discussion now. I assume I was audible all this time, right?
Yes, very, very much.
Good morning.
So
Good morning.
open to questions. Yes, good morning.
Okay. Actually, I joined late.
Oh,
Yeah, but I was able to pick up with what you are saying. It's a
uh-huh.
very good product, a very good one in the market nowadays. That hackers they are evolving, and there's new emerging threats, and
Exactly.
they're getting more sophisticated.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good. It's going to be a very helpful product. So I want to understand: is it a standard standalone application, or is it integrated with any of the Securite existing products?
No, it can be provided as a separate application.
Okay.
So we do not have dependency on any other product because it is running on a very different platform wherein we are talking about a totally different scenario of application security. So dependency on other products is not relevant here.
Okay. Okay. That's my question. Thank you very much.
Mm, Happy to help. Any further questions?
Can I ask, is this a cloud-based or is when implemented on servers?
So, as I said, there are multiple options on the deployment scenarios. So, there are machine images already ready to install on a public cloud environment, and this can be provided as a SaaS-based offering also. So, if it's a public cloud, let it be a private cloud, the deployment can happen at any particular environment. And then, if a customer actually requires a SaaS-based platform, when he does not want his environment to be actually utilized, his infrastructure to be utilized, then we can talk about a SaaS-based platform also.
But how do you implement it in relation to user applications? For example, if I have an accounting system that's online, how would I protect it with this system? I mean,
So, for example, we need to understand the application architecture in this case. So, when I'm talking about application architecture, we need to understand when I'm trying to interact with the application, what are the point of intersections? So, when I'm heading to a particular application, to reach that application, I'll have to get onto multiple intersection points to reach. For example, there will be a firewall in place. After the firewall, there can be a load balancer. There can be an API gateway, followed by which there will be an application residing at the backend. So what our solution needs to do is it needs to sit in line. It needs to sniff all the traffic that is targeted onto that backend application. So once the solution is present inside the particular environment, then the solution will be, able to sniff any such activity that is going on. And that is how we'll be able to protect it from any particular threats.
so would it be sitting before the application? That is to
Yes.
say, if I were if I were running an accounting system, would I have to go through the L defense force to get to the application in question, or?
Yes, exactly. It will have to be deployed before the application because it needs to analyze the amount of information that is coming inside before letting the information to come in.
Final question. Is it possible to have some documentation as to how it could be
Totally.
implemented in
Yes,
relation to
we
in
will get
relation
back to
to
you. We will get back to you. Please, my backend team will actually support you on this. So they will actually reach out. If we can have your details, then yes, we can help you with all the documents that are required. From a reference document point of view to how it is actually integrated and deployed within multiple environments, all this is readily available and we can share that with you.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Any further questions? So
Hello, good morning.
with this, I'm concluding the presentation part of the session. So over to you, Nihal.
Hello,
Yaswir, I think there's
hello.
one question coming.
Oh, sorry. Yes, please.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yes, I didn't understand well the meaning of admin when you talk about admin. AMUNE.
I am so sorry. I was not able to properly understand.
It's the name of the product.
Yes, they
Immune.
put the immune. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
Okay.
comes from the immunity.
The artificial immune, actually.
Okay, okay. Because I was just seeing information that you were presenting. I didn't get what I knew of me.
Got it. So I guess yeah, that's I we assume we don't have any further questions. And from our end, since we are recording the session, in case if anyone has joined later, so we'll be sharing the link so that you guys can again go through the presentation. And definitely my contact details are already given there, and we shall communicate further through email and share the data sheet and all.
Please, I wish to add a detail. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, this black cover that we are seeing on the screen. When you are reading the information, you are not reading all the information on the screen. With the black screen.
Oh, okay.
And
Zubair,
the,
I think there's some blockage here on the
yes.
right hand side bottom corner.
Oh, sorry. Is it okay now?
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet, not yet.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, I think
No.
the only the
No,
website
no.
URL.
Yeah,
But you can see the email ID and the mobile number. So the
yes,
URL
I
is
can
the
see the.
securite.com.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending this webinar. Thank you very much for taking time, and we shall look forward to communicate with you furthermore. Thank you very much, Zubair, for your time as well.
Thank you
Okay,
so
thank
much, Neil. It was my pleasure. And thank you so much, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.